Today we're going to show you how to set up your REQ215 dual 15 band equalizer. This is a perfect graphic EQ for fine-tuning the sound for live performances, DJ events, in the studio, and much more. Along with the EQ itself, it also comes with a power cable. So the first thing we'll want to do to set up the EQ is take the power cable and plug the female end into the back of the EQ, then take the other end and plug it into a power outlet. Now the REQ215 is 1U rack mountable, so if we wanted to, we could place this into a rack unit or into a rack bag by lining the two holes on each side of the unit up to a rack mount and using 2 screws for either side to lock it into place. Now an EQ like this is most commonly used for live performances, so to set it up in a live setup, we'll want to connect the EQ to a passive mixer that is also connected to either a power amp to power passive speakers or to active speakers. For this setup, we'll be using a power amp and passive speakers. Now to start connecting our EQ to our mixer and amp, we can either use 1/4" cables or XLR cables. Today we're going to be using XLR cables. So start by taking 2 XLR cables and plugging the female ends into the main outputs on our passive mixer. Then we'll want to take the other ends and plug them directly into the XLR inputs on channel 1 and 2 of our EQ. Now to plug the EQ into our power amp, we'll need another pair of XLR cables. So again, take the female ends and plug them into the XLR outputs of the EQ, and then take the male ends and plug them right into the XLR inputs on the power amplifier that is powering our passive speakers. And remember, to connect your passive speakers to your power amp, you're probably going to need a pair of speak-on cables, and you're just going to want to connect the left speaker to the left channel of your power amp and the right speaker to the right channel of your power amp using those speak-on cables. So now, as the name suggests, we have 15 frequency bands for both the left and right channels in our audio system that we can use to affect the sound coming out of our speakers. So we can really fine-tune the sound around any room we're in or around our personal preference. Now each channel comes with a bypass switch to turn the EQ on or off, and there's also a low cut button on each channel that will cut out any frequencies under 80 Hertz. This is perfect if you're going to use this EQ with a subwoofer in your system and you want the subwoofer to really handle the low end. Each channel also comes with a volume knob to set the level of everything coming out of the EQ. Keep in mind, with this setup, we're going to affect the overall mix since we're sending both channels through the outputs of our mixer that's going into our speakers. So we actually have a demo setup to show you this all in action, so let's go check that out with Perry right now.
What's up, guys? So as you can see, I've got my REQ215 all set up with my passive mixer, my amp, and my 2 passive speakers. So I'm gonna play some music with the EQ turned off to start, and then I'm gonna kick it on midway so we can really tell the difference. Here we go. So again, this is without the EQ. Doesn't sound too bad on its own. But let's kick on the EQ now. Woo! Oh yeah. You can already tell the difference. The bass and the high end sound much better. The mids sound really good too. Oh yeah. So as you guys just heard, the REQ215 makes a huge difference in your setup because you have all these different frequency bands that you can affect. It really makes a big difference in your DJ or live setup. Let's go back to Mike for more info.
Now, another really cool setup we can do with the REQ215 is to use it with individual channels on a passive or powered mixer if your mixer has insert jacks on each of those channels. For this, we'll want to use a 1/4" Y cable so we can plug into the inserts of any of the channels on our mixer. So you would just take the single 1/4" side of the Y cable and plug that into the insert jack on whichever channel you want to use the EQ with on the mixer, and then take the other 2 ends of the Y cable and plug one side into the input and the other side into the output of the same channel on the EQ. The benefit of this setup is when we use the EQ with just one channel, we can further affect the sound solely coming through that one channel, and on top of that, use the other built-in effects that are on the mixer for a more concentrated and preferable sound. So hopefully this video showed you how easy it is to set up your REQ215 EQ. But again, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support tech team through phone or email. We'll see you guys in the next one.